Okay, we're attempting my balancing skills this morning as I record this. So, what do these four characters all have in common? If you'd be able to say that, Sailor Moon and, Ariel are both princesses, okay, fair. Simba's a prince, yes. They are all parents. Simba and Nala are parents to Kiara and Kion for the Lion Guard. Ariel is Melody's mother, and Serena is Rini's mother, or Chibiusa, depending on which translation you want to go with. And I am Chip's mother. So we're going to pull that comparison in here, too. They are all parents. I could pull Shanks down and pull him into this, argument as well. In regards to... for this channel, I have done various Parents' Day videos for One Piece, for My Hero Academia, for Black Clover, Bleach. And, that's just like going through and listing off all these different, family, parents, siblings, grandparents, aunts and uncles, all those types of things. And in One Piece, given everything that has happened, and since I've done the original video of that, we've been introduced to many, many more parents and siblings and grandparents and stuff like that. Eventually I will end up redoing that series, where I will have all of them there, because I'll be able to add in, like, Kuma and Bonnie and Ginny, and I'll be able to add in, like, Garling and Shamrock in there with Shanks, and I'll be able to add in all the parents here on Elbaf, which is the main thing that I wanted to talk about today. So, this was not a planned video. I scrapped this together this morning because I really wanted to talk about it. And we'll see how well the copyright claims go through, because I've got a lot of manga panels in this from the last chapter. From 1174. So hopefully this doesn't get copyright claimed. We'll see what happens. I really hope it doesn't. But at the end of the last chapter, and this overshadowed, unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that happened earlier in the chapter. We have Loki bursting out of the clouds, bursting out of the branches of the Sun Realm, bursting into, him and Luffy showing up and saving the parents and children, which I'm quite certain Luffy planned. He's like, I think someone's falling over that way. Loki, fine, we'll fly over there. I'm big enough as is. I can turn 5 degrees and we'll catch them. Type of thing. And, yes, Loki is like this continent, this island-sized, continental-sized, giant F-off, black or purple or pink or whatever colored dragon he's gonna be. Kind of want him to be purple. Not gonna be surprised if he's a giant black dragon. A lot of people are saying Nidhogg. I was saying Nidhogg as well. Tyking pointed out it might be Fafnir or some variation of another, Norse dragon. I am fine with this. This video is not about Loki. The chapter was called The Strongest Thing in the World. I think one of the original translations was like the strongest being in the world or something, but the strongest thing in the world. And the thing in this chapter that we see that is the strongest thing in the world is not the giant F-off dragon that is probably quite capable of dishing out quite a bit of pain to the gods' knights with just, Conqueror's hockeying up his claws and slicing Summers to ribbons, which I very much want to see, to be quite clear. Same thing with Kirringham. Just go... Okay, they're dead. I'm going to go destroy the rest of the nightmare monsters, and then I'm going to go fight the thing that's causing this. Luffy, don't hurt my skeleton musician. Fine. Goes off, fights Gunko Emu, depending on what's happening with that. But the thing that I wanted to focus on that is, or at least from my version of it, the strongest thing in the chapter is the love of the parents and the family members, and Ange for Johanna, for her students in this, is love. The strongest thing is love. Yes, a giant F-off dragon is very strong. I'm not arguing with that. But one of the reasons that Loki is the way that he is in the first place is because of Ida's love for him. And Harald's love for him. Those are some of the reasons that Loki is this strong. Yeah, he's got the squirrel hammer, That's very helpful. He's strong on his own even without the devil fruit. Also helpful. Giant frickin' dragon. Very helpful. But those are not the thing that made Loki the way that he is. The thing that made Loki the way that he is Ida's love for him and Harald's love for him. Yeah, Harald could have done better. No argument there. Harald could have done a lot better. But Ida, perfect, no notes. Could have done better than Harald. Other than that, no notes as a parent. Ida, you are perfect. Perfect for Hyrdine, perfect for Loki, just perfect in general. No notes. Stay exactly as you are. Except alive, not dead. But in this chapter, in the last chapter, you see all of these parents. You see Ripley, you see Ylva's mother, you see Skaldi's mother, you see Oimo there with Olav, you see Karin's mother, you see Mag's mother, you see Bent's mother. We see his father earlier in the arc, who's like, oh no, my son. For Ylva, we have Jarl as well as her great-great-grandfather. We have Ronja and her father, and I think her grandmother is the one we see chewing on the arrow. We see, Johanna and Ange. We see, Rodo trying to get to Bjorn. We saw, Scopper trying to save Colin earlier. All of these parents, family members, people who are the guardians of these children are just racing at them to try to save them. Even with the full knowledge for most of them that grabbing onto this child, my child, or in the case of Johanna, for Ange, one of her students, grabbing them, impaling themselves on all of the thorns that are there, and they're going to keep walking, and we're going to fall off this cliff. And the thing about this that just makes me go, oh God, is like, I would hope that when it comes to my nieces or nephew, or when it would come to other family members, or even just other children that I know, that I have watched grow up at my church, or other family members and stuff like that I have, I would God hope that I would be like the person being like, okay, I'm not letting this child fall off the cliff alone. Grab. Ow. Fall. It's like, you hope you have that in you. You hope you have that, even if it's like a kid you don't know. You're like, this kid doesn't deserve to be, to end this way, type of thing. And I have the brain that jumps to the worst possible conclusion a lot of the time. Mom, we need to talk. Who died? Nobody died. What happened? Nothing happened. I just need to discuss something with you. Yeah, but that's never been good most of the time. I have had way too many times where I've had my mom either wake me up early in the morning to say blah, 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 had a heart attack, or blah, 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 cousin, uncle had a stroke, or something like that. Not fun things to deal with. Not good ways to have to deal with my life. I've had that happen too many times throughout my life. And so my brain has been programmed to, I know it hasn't happened every single time, but it's happened enough that I'm like, oh God, what happened? But I have that in my brain. But that's not what this is. These are parents. These are guardians, grandparents, siblings, in the case of Bjorn and Rode, that are just like, I'm not letting you fall alone. I don't care what pain it causes me. And that is the whole thing when it comes to love, when it comes to paternal love, family love, sibling love, teachers to their children, in regards to Ange rushing to save her students, Johanna specifically in that moment, with them rushing to save them. That it is this thing of must protect. And there are multiple times throughout all of fiction and, mythology and stories in general that have this. Sailor Moon has it multiple times when it comes to Serena protecting Rini, when it comes to her protecting her friends, and their friends protecting each other, and even, throwing in, couples into this with like her and, Tuxedo Mask with Darian in there and everything like that. Where it's just like they are protecting each other because there is love there. She has protected her parents and her brother in the same way. And other random people that she does not know. She has put her life on the line to protect these people because that's who she is. And we see that here. We see that in Harry Potter multiple times when it comes to all of the mothers. We see that with Lily's sacrifice to protect Harry. We see that with Molly protecting her children, with her fighting Bellatrix to protect Jenny after losing Fred. We see that with, Narcissa willingly betraying Voldemort in order to try to get into the castle to try to save her son. We see that there with those characters, where this is this motherly love, this this motherly love in that regard coming forward. And we see that in other stories as well. Black Clover has that to a degree with Asta and his mother. And with Lich or not with Lich, with Libre and different stuff like that, where those get brought into effect. We see that in I guess a little bit in Dr. Stone, a tad, not too much, but like a little bit. Senku's father, Byakuya's faith in Senku in the future to find all the clues and figure out what happened. He puts that faith in his son, type of thing. So there's like that there as well. And what is the whole thing that redeems Stitch in Lilo and Stitch is love. Is family. And in this chapter, we have all of these adults just rushing essentially to their deaths, what they perceive to be their deaths, grabbing their child or student or sibling or whatever that is theirs and grabbing onto them for dear life as they are all falling to their death. And it is this moment of just, it's Ripley says it best. It's, I'm not letting you die alone. That is her motherly instinct, her love for her son, her love for Colin coming out and just doesn't care that this is going to cause her a ton of pain in the process of falling, that it's most likely going to lead to her death. She's just like, I'm not losing my son this way. I'm not losing him alone. And it's like, I'm sure she's well aware of the fact that Scopper would be doing this same damn thing if he was up here. He would be trying to get, he's very badly injured at this point in time, being treated by, Chopper and everything like that. But like, he's badly injured, but like Scopper would be there at the same moment if he could. If he was able to get there, he would be grabbing on as well. And he's probably going to be bawling his eyes out when he sees that Ripley is hurt. And that, oh God, Colin's safe. Oh God, Ripley, honey, what happened? Why are you all bloody? Type of thing. But like, we see that, and like the other side of this is, and it's like the funny side of it where you have that, like, Bent's mother is kind of the origin for like the Nightmare Mooma monsters that show up that are the moms. And how even Dory and Bragi are like, oh God, it's the moms of Elbath, because it's like, yeah, because it's like, who's gonna raise these strong warriors in the first place? It's the mothers. It's like, yeah, Dory and Bragi's mothers. What were they like? How frickin' badass were they? They could still be alive, to be quite fair, but they'd be quite old at this point in time. But like, how badass were they? How badass was Jarl and Jarl's mothers when they were growing up? How badass were they that they made those two? Type of thing. And it's like, the thing is that my answer is that when it comes to like parents, it's like, you don't have to be a badass warrior to be a badass person. Like, in One Piece, so many of us want Luffy's mom to be like some a celestial dragon, or to be, some, this or that, or crocodile, depending on how you want to put that there. I've seen a lot of good fan art that has that and lots of stuff, and I really like it, but I don't think that's going to be the case, but I do find it funny. By the way, yeah, John Swazi, who is the English voice actor of Crocodile, knows fully about this theory. He's just like, I'd have no idea. But like, Luffy's mom could just end up being just like some normal person, some normal lady that Dragon fell in love with, who like put him in his place at some point, the way that like Ida put Harold in his place. And that's just like the love at first slap or love at first scolding type of a thing. And, that could be who Luffy's biological mother is just some random lady. Not random in the sense of just like Dragon just had a one-night stand with someone, but random as in like, she's not famous, she's not a pirate, she's not a revolutionary, she's not a celestial dragon, she's just some random person, some random lady that Dragon met and fell in love with and had a child with. Whoopsie daisy, that's not good. And then either she dies during, giving birth or shortly thereafter, and then Dragon has to take Luffy and has him go and, takes him to Garp and is raised in, in Fuchsia Village, and eventually, he has, Dodon as his adopted mother, essentially, his foster mother. And, Makino gets thrown in there as well. But, and the whole thing with One Piece is, and a lot of the adventure stories is, a lot of authors are, and Oda has stated, it's well, if your mom's still around, then what's the point of leaving your home? I'm like, you can have a perfectly normal home life and still want to go on an adventure. The two are not mutually exclusive. You don't have to have a dead mother to go on an adventure. That's the way that it is in One Piece, unfortunately, is you got a lot of dead parents. You got kids that are orphans, you got kids whose, parents died at some point in time throughout their childhood in various cases, in the case of some of them twice. And it's just yeah, well, their mom's dead, so what's the point in staying home? Once they're old enough, why can't they leave? And I'm like, yeah, not exactly how that works, but sure. But there's so many things like that, and even in even if you look at Game of Thrones, there's Jon Snow goes off to the wall because he has no idea who his mother is. She is dead probably regardless of whoever she is. But then you look at, the most recent episode of Night of the Seven Kingdoms, where we get Dunk's backstory, where we see that his mother is dead. His best friend died right in front of him, and then he gets taken in by Arlen. And then all of this other stuff. And by the way, Baelor, God, he would have been a great king. Damn Mace. But so we see so much in those stories where we see that, but then we also have other cases in the stories where you have this amazing amount of love come through as well. In One Piece, you have this multiple times where there are other parents willing to die for their children. We see that with Belmare and Nojiko and Nami. When we get Nami's backstory with Arlong, we see that with Sanji's mother taking the poison in order to try to save her save her sons, in regards to trying to make them human, give them back their full emotions again. We see this with so many other characters, parents that are dying to protect their children. We see this with Corazon dying to protect Law, hanging on for dear life to keep the quiet bubble around Law long enough for Law to get away after Dofi shoots him, after Dofi shoots Roshinate. We see that there. We see so much with, so many of these different characters in the story, and not just mothers, but fathers too, that are everything Kuma went through in order to try to help Bonnie. Just all of that suffering that Kuma went through is very much this whole thing of the strongest thing that keeps compelling him is his soul, is his love for his daughter, is what keeps compelling him. And we see that. And I'll even give this to a degree to Garling. Not in regards to the way that he treated the, Shanks and Shamrock's mother by any means, but I do believe that he genuinely does love his sons. I do believe that Garling genuinely does love Shanks and Shamrock. Probably more Shamrock at this point in time, because Shanks kind of went AWOL, but you get the idea. Dragon definitely very much does love Luffy. I'm not going to argue with that. We see, Cobra loved Vivi and all of that stuff that happened there. We see this through so many different characters throughout the course of the story. And we see this in regards to other family connections. We see Viola trying to protect Rebecca during Dressrosa. When everything is happening there, when Dofi is puppet manipulating Rebecca, trying to have her kill Viola. Trying to kill Violet. She's just close your eyes and just pretend this isn't happening. She is much more worried about Rebecca than she is herself, type of a thing. And we see that there. We see that in the form of, Kinemon takes on this role of a parent for Momonosuke throughout the whole course and time, from when we meet them at Punk Hazard all the way up until, Zoe, where we get that reveal about Momonosuke isn't my son. He's Kozuki Oden's son, who is the rightful shogun of Wano. I'm actually one of the retainers. But Momonosuke and Kinemon very much have that parent-child relationship there, because of for the sake of keeping Momonosuke safe, but also because Kinemon kind of took on that role a little bit there. Not because he wants to replace Oden and Toki, but because he knows Momonosuke kind of needs this person that can help him in that capacity. And the other scabbards kind of fall into that way as well, minus Conjuro. But like they fall into that. You see that with Whitebeard coming to Marineford in order to try to save Ace. And like all of his his other children, his other allied crews and everything like that showing up to try to save Ace. You see that with Luffy going all the way through Impel Down and all the way back up and fighting through Magellan's Poison, all the way fighting the Marineford after getting out of Impel Down and getting all the way to the scaffolding and saving Ace, getting him free. And then it's Ace's freaking own smartass that gets him killed. It's his own freaking pride that gets him killed. And I've mentioned that before in the video where I went through like the reason, what led to these characters' death. Pride. I love you, Ace, but it was your freaking pride and Whitebeard, which I can't blame you on. But there are better times to activate this thing and try. There are better hills to die on than this. But like we see that there. We see that with so many of these other characters. Like even look at Pound in Whole Cake Island. Pound attacked, Oven, probably knowing that it was probably going to lead to his death, all in an attempt to try to get Chiffon and Beiji and such a little bit longer of a time to be able to escape by, Pound distracting, Oven by whacking him upside the head with a club. That is still very much like that. It's not going to buy much time, but it might help type of thing. And you see that throughout the course. Like, even going back to, Lion King. You have Mufasa, his last act is saving Simba before he's, clawed off the cliff by Scar. But we have that. And it is, like, his advice to Simba that brings him back to the Pride Lands and everything, remember who you are and everything that brings Simba back to the Pride Lands. And all of that stuff. And it is, going into Lion King 2, where you have Kiara and Kovu. It is, very much the Romeo and Juliet minus the death type of thing. I mean, there's still death, but it's not them that dies. Where it's, it is Simba's love for Kiara that helps see past, the outsiders being different. Look at them, they are us type of thing. I'm going to throw Disney references at you all the time in videos. I'm sorry. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the movies. They're great. Lion King 2, Simba's Pride is one of the best, if not, in my opinion, the best direct-to-DVD or direct-to-home video sequel that Disney ever did. Lion King 2. Best. Perfect. No notes. Type of thing. And, they go through so much of that with the characters. You look at Mulan. Mulan's impetus in the movie and in the myth is her impetus to go to war is because she doesn't want her father to die. She is willing to make that sacrifice so he doesn't die type of thing. And, proves that she's like the greatest warrior in all of China type of thing. Destroyed my palace and you have saved all of us, so thank you type of thing. All of that stuff. And so many go through that. So many people in One Piece in general, that you have so many of these people that yes, the Straw Hats have put their lives on the line for each other. We've seen that multiple times throughout the course of the story. They will protect each other to the death, but they are also very much, they have protected people that they barely know, in order to try to keep them safe. And, they go through all that. Luffy barely knows Tama, and he still is yeah, no, I'm going to help this girl type of thing. Same thing, Ace barely knew Tama. He knew her for a bit longer than Luffy did during the time frame that he stayed on Wano. But, you got that there. But, you have all of these moments throughout One Piece. And it, ties back into other stuff in fiction in general and, other stories and things like that. That it is love that is the strongest thing in the world. And I want to do a video at some point in time. I don't know when I'd ever be doing this. I gotta wait until we get more information on Emu before I fully want to make this video. But I want to do a video where I talk about like Emu versus Sailor Moon and how I'm pretty sure that Sailor Moon slash Princess Serenity slash Neo Queen Serenity would kick Emu's butt type of thing. Um, but I mean, like, different series, different power scaling, whatever you want to go with. I still think she would be able to kick his butt with her full power type of thing. Because her power is love. And that is something that has been harped back on in One Piece many, many times. Garp, the reason that Garp's fist can hurt Luffy is not hockey, it's love. And I get that, like, Nami beating Luffy up, being able to, like, beat up Luffy is, like, comedy type of thing. And, like, yeah, I'm the person who ships Luffy Nami, no argument here, I ship them. I'm not denying it. But even without that, there is the love of friendship there. That is Nami's love for Luffy as a friend and as her captain is something that, like, bypasses his, immunity to blunt force hits. And she's able to beat him up. Also, it's funny. And, like, we've seen Sanji kick Luffy and it's the same result type of thing. Because there's that love there. Because there's, their Nakama. And how that gets shifted around there. And even Zoro and Sanji, yeah, they've got the rivalry, but they trust each other. Sanji trusts Zoro to be like, hey, if when you come after me again, when we see each other again, if I've gone out of my mind, you gotta be the one to put me down, type of thing. And Zoro's like, yeah, sure, crappy cook, I can do that, whatever. And, doesn't end up happening because Sanji doesn't go out of his mind. But, there's that trust there that Sanji puts into Zoro. And, and even if you want to go through and look at, like, okay, I know Film Red is not canon. Uta is canon, and her being Shanks' daughter is canon, but, like, the events of Film Red are not canon. I don't even know how much of, Uta and Luffy friendship is canon. I really want at least their friendship as kids to be canon. I would like that. But, Shanks did the stupid thing of leaving her on the island for love. And then he comes back 12 whatever years later. 12, 13 whatever years later. And, he fights through the Marines. Gets himself beat up by the citizens that are being, controlled by Uta in their sleep. And, he is able to, like, get through to her with Luffy on one, Shanks in the real world and Luffy in the top musical world. Are you just tired of me talking about love? He's like, you tell me you love me all the time. I'm going downstairs. That, like, they are able to, fight through it and are able to get to Uta to, help her see reason, essentially. And, Shanks loves his daughter. He wants her safe, type of thing. And, you see that throughout the course of so many different arcs in One Piece. There is always, like, some impetus of, like, a parent and a child, or siblings, or friends, or something like that. Like, even if you want to look at Skypiea in regards to, like, the flashback with Kalgara and Nolan. They were best friends. And, like, there's lots of stuff about, like, Kalgara or Nolan would have been, like, very good, candidates to be, like, the sun god, the inheritor of, like, Joy Boy's will type of thing. And I'm like, they probably both could have done it. Been the inheritor of those wills, that will there. And there's, like, a whole theory about, like, Nolan being, like, Usopp's ancestor, and I'm like, yeah, I can get that. And a whole theory about, like, Kalgara being Luffy's ancestor, and I'm like, yeah, I could see that. There's 400 years between those time frames. Many, many generations can happen in that time frame. But, like, so there's so much of that there. And that is one thing that One Piece has harped on a lot. And I don't find it annoying, because I am the person that's just like, yeah, no, love is the strong thing. Love is the most powerful thing. The strongest thing, the toughest thing in the world is love. Because if it is something where you love your family, you love your friends, you love your siblings, your parents, your children, your students, your coworkers, if they're people that very much, enjoy spending time with and have gone through all, that you are bonded with, your church people, your other community members, however you want to put it, your neighbors that you have known your whole life in some cases, different things like that. All of that type of love is something that is so hard to destroy. And I know I've probably made this point before in other videos, but love is just something that is designed to be so, so hard to destroy. Like, you look at mythology, almost every single, pantheon, whether you want to look at mythology or whether you want to look at religions that are still around, there is almost always some type of a goddess or god of love. And then there's other ones that are like parental love, family love, all those other types of love that are almost always somehow portrayed as some type of a god or a goddess. And they're almost always like a major god or goddess in some shape or form. And then, you look at Zeus and he's just all over the place. Fair. But, like, there's so much of that happens there where it's all of this stuff that is like, love is the strongest. Love is the thing that is the hardest to destroy in the world. And even in this day and age, in our world, with so many different things where it's like families being divided by political things, by social standing on different types of things, by politics, by my opinion on this or your opinion on that. There is, like, I have this in my own family. I have aunts and uncles that I don't agree with when it comes to political things because they are very much more on the right-wing side and I'm very much more left-leaning. And then I have other ones that are like, vice versa, that they're just like, yeah, my kids are crazy because they think that people shouldn't go to prison just because they were brought here as children illegally. And, different stuff like that. And, I have family that I don't necessarily agree with when it comes to a lot of that stuff, but I still love them. And then I know that there's other people that I know or that I'm aware of who have like cut off ties with their family because of those things, because that is very much like, people who are part of the LGBTQIA plus community who are like, yeah, no, my family think that I am crazy because I am this way, and they think that I am lesser than because I'm this way, and they don't think I deserve the same rights. And so I have to cut off that part of my family, otherwise I will be miserable. And they go and find a found family. They go and find their version of Nakama, their found family. And those love bonds, can form that way. And, it's just like this whole thing. And, I want love to prevail in our world. I want it to be that love wins. I do. But I would like to see that happen in One Piece as well. And it's not like I'm thinking, oh, Luffy's going to defeat Imu with a giant fist of love. That would be fun. But, like, there's the whole theory that, like, Luffy giving the Straw Hats, like, giving his allies, like, a burst of, like, sun god power, the way that, like, Bonnie got it in Egghead. Through her own devil fruit, but, like, a combination of, like, Luffy and Bonnie's powers being able to give the Straw Hats and their other allies this, like, Nika sun god liberation boost. And yeah, it'd be one thing if they were the same way that Luffy gets his powers, like they get like the stretchy Toon Force type powers. But if it like enhances their own abilities just further than what they already have, would be awesome. And Tekken talked about this in his live stream. I'm not gonna say that I didn't watch it. He talked about this in the live stream, where it's just like, give Nami full weather powers, make Robin an angel, make Frankie a giant robot, do Soul, something super with, like, Brook and his Soul King powers. Turn Usopp into a giant warrior. Something along those lines. Make Chopper's, Monster Point form, bigger. And, like, they can still have, like, the same kind of color palette, like the white color palette that, like, Luffy has in the Nico form. But, shift some stuff around a little bit. Give them a few more, like, highlight colors or something like that. That's more their primary color. And, like, have that shift down through not just the Straw Hats, but also some of their other allies. Depending on what happens with like the Domi Reversi setup in like Elbath with like what Emu's doing, we will see if that is something that can be, shifted, where we flip all of the giants that were Domi Reversied and flip them to white pieces instead of black pieces. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen because of love, but it might be something that is compelled to happen because of it, type of thing. I don't know. We'll see. But that's what I have here. I thank you very much for watching. Yes, I know I was rambling and I went into a bunch of other fandoms. I'm sorry. This is the way that my brain works in regards to various examples of Sailor Moon saving her daughter, even before she knows she's her daughter, because time travel type stuff. But I wanted to point those out. So, thank you for watching, and have a nice rest of your day. Bye.